The massive chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with alien voices. 12 different species sat around the curved table, their forms strange and varied. Some looked like walking trees, others resembled giant insects, and a few appeared almost human, but with scales instead of skin. They all shared one thing in common. They believed they were superior to the small human delegation sitting quietly in the corner. Jake Morrison adjusted his simple uniform and tried to look nervous. It wasn't hard to pretend. The aliens around him could crush Earth with a single command, or so they thought. He watched High Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrians stand up, his tall blue frame casting shadows across the room. "We gather today to discuss the human situation," Vextar announced, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's translation systems. "These primitive beings have been in space for barely 300 years. They struggle with basic technology and can barely defend their own system." Jake kept his face blank, but inside he smiled. The Zephyrians had been feeding the galaxy lies about humanity for centuries. They wanted everyone to think humans were weak and stupid. It made their own position stronger when they could point to an even more primitive species. Amy Foster sat beside Jake, pretending to fumble with her translation device. To everyone watching, she looked confused and overwhelmed. In reality, she was recording every word in 17 different alien languages. Her mind, enhanced with neural implants that no alien scanner could detect, was processing information faster than their best computers. The question before us, continued an insect-like delegate from the hegemony, is whether these humans deserve access to the Outer Rim territories. The worlds there are mostly barren rock, but they might provide some mining opportunities. Several delegates laughed. The idea that humans could effectively mine anything seemed funny to them. They had no idea that those barren worlds contained quantum crystals that Earth needed for their real fleet. The fleet that was hidden behind Jupiter's massive radiation field, invisible to any alien sensors. Jake spoke up, making his voice sound uncertain. "Honored delegates, humanity would be grateful for any territory you might grant us. We know we are new to galactic society and we have much to learn." More laughter filled the chamber. The delegates exchanged looks that clearly said they found human humility amusing. If only they knew the truth. Far away in the Sol system, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of a ship that would have terrified every alien in the galaxy. The UHS Sovereign hung in space behind Jupiter, its hull absorbing all electromagnetic radiation. Around it, hundreds of other vessels waited in perfect silence. These ships used technology that pushed the limits of physics itself. Kate looked at the holographic display showing the Galactic Council meeting. She could see Jake playing his role perfectly, looking small and helpless while gathering intelligence that would change everything. The plan they had worked on for 3 centuries was finally reaching its conclusion. "Admiral?" Her communications officer called out. "We're receiving the scheduled update from our deep cover agents." "Put it through," Kate ordered. The display changed to show a star map marked with thousands of red dots. Each dot represented a human agent who had spent decades, sometimes their entire lives, infiltrating alien society. They worked as mechanics, translators, dock workers, and even government officials. The aliens had no idea that humans had been studying them for generations. Back on Nexus Prime, the debate continued. The Zephyrians were pushing hard for the Outer Rim decision, making it sound like a generous gift to poor, struggling humanity. They painted themselves as wise mentors helping a younger species find its place in the galaxy. "We propose a trial period," Vextar said smoothly. "Give the humans access to 3 systems in the Outer Rim. If they can prove they can manage them responsibly, we might consider additional territories in the future." The other delegates nodded. It seemed reasonable to them. They would give humans some worthless rocks to play with while keeping all the good systems for themselves. They had no idea they were handing over exactly what humanity needed. Amy caught Jake's eye and made a tiny gesture. Her enhanced hearing had picked up private conversations between several delegates. They were already planning how to exploit human labor in the mining operations. They expected humans to be grateful for any work, even dangerous jobs that their own people wouldn't do. Jake stood up slowly, still playing the role of nervous diplomat. "The human delegation is honored by this generous offer. We accept the terms and promise to prove ourselves worthy of your trust." The chamber erupted in pleased murmurs. The aliens congratulated themselves on their wisdom and generosity. They had just solved the human problem by giving them something to do that would keep them busy and out of the way. As the meeting ended, Jake received a message through his neural implant. To any scanner, it would look like a simple muscle twitch. But Jake understood the code perfectly. Admiral Sullivan had given the final authorization. Operation Harvest Moon was now active. That evening, Jake and Amy walked through the alien quarter of Nexus Prime, still maintaining their act. They appeared to be tourists, amazed by the advanced technology around them. In reality, they were noting defensive positions, communication arrays, and the locations of important facilities. "It's almost time," Amy whispered as they passed a fountain that played music in colors instead of sounds. 300 years of preparation," Jake replied quietly. "Our great-great-grandparents started this plan. Now we get to finish it." Behind Jupiter, Admiral Sullivan gave the order that would change galactic history. Across human space, sleeper agents began their final preparations. Ships that had waited, in hiding for decades, started moving toward their target positions. The greatest deception in galactic history was about to be revealed. The aliens thought they knew humanity. They thought humans were weak, primitive, and easily controlled. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. As Jake and Amy returned to their simple quarters on Nexus Prime, neither of them could sleep. Tomorrow would bring the beginning of the end for the old galactic order. Humanity had spent 3 centuries watching, learning, and preparing. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be harmless. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council granted humanity access to the Outer Rim territories. The mining operations were going exactly as planned, though not in the way the aliens expected. While they thought humans were struggling to extract basic metals, the real work involved harvesting quantum crystals that would power the most advanced fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The peace didn't last long. The hegemony, a military alliance of 4 aggressive species, had been watching human activities with growing interest. Their leaders saw an opportunity for easy conquest that would boost their reputation and provide new slave labor. General Krath stood before his war council, his massive form towering over the holographic display of human space. His species, the Drakmori, had built their reputation on crushing weaker civilizations. To him, humanity represented the perfect target, valuable territory with minimal defense capabilities. "The humans have been mining for months now," Krath growled, his voice like grinding stone. "Our scouts report only a handful of patrol ships guarding their operations. These primitive vessels use technology that our ancestors abandoned centuries ago." His officers laughed appreciatively. They had all seen the intelligence reports on human military capabilities. The ships were slow, poorly armed, and seemed to break down regularly. It would be like crushing insects. What they didn't know was that every ship they had observed was deliberately obsolete. Captain Ryan Carter commanded one of these decoy vessels, the UES Endeavour, and he played his role perfectly. When his ship's engines failed during a routine patrol, he made sure the hegemony scouts got detailed scans of the outdated reactor design. Ryan's crew were all volunteers who had trained for years to appear incompetent while actually gathering critical intelligence. When hegemony forces finally intercepted the Endeavour near the contested border zone, Ryan followed his orders exactly. "This is Captain Carter of the Earth vessel Endeavour," he broadcast on all frequencies, making sure his voice shook with fear. "We surrender. Please don't fire on us." The hegemony commander couldn't believe how easy it was. The human ship powered down its weapons without firing a single shot. When boarding parties came aboard, they found a crew that seemed terrified and completely unprepared for combat. Within hours, Ryan and his team found themselves in a hegemony prison facility. To their captors, they were just another group of defeated enemies. In reality, they were intelligence operatives gathering information from inside the enemy's most secure installations. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was feeling pressure from the hegemony's growing aggression. Several member species had already lost territory to the military alliance, and now they were demanding action against humanity to prevent further expansion. The humans must be relocated for their own protection, declared Ambassador Seth Ricks of the Coalition. States during an emergency session, the hegemony will not stop with the Outer Rim territories. They will use human space as a staging ground for further attacks. Jake Morrison sat in the human delegation area, listening to the debate with growing anger. The aliens were discussing humanity's future as if humans had no say in the matter. They spoke about protective custody and managed relocation like they were discussing livestock. Amy Foster passed him a coded message through the chamber's data network. Their agents throughout the galaxy were reporting massive military buildups. The hegemony was preparing for a major offensive, and several other species were positioning themselves to claim pieces of human territory once the fighting started. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Hayes worked frantically in her laboratory deep beneath the Sahara Desert. The final component of humanity's greatest secret was almost ready. For decades, human scientists had been developing consciousness transfer technology that would allow human minds to directly pilot spacecraft. The implications were staggering. While alien pilots needed seconds to process information and react to threats, human consciousness could interface directly with ship systems, reducing reaction times to microseconds. Combined with quantum processing cores, it would make human vessels nearly impossible to defeat in combat. Integration test successful, Lisa announced to her team as the latest prototype came online. We can begin installation on the fleet immediately. The message was immediately relayed to Admiral Sullivan, who was watching the political situation deteriorate from her command center beneath Luna's surface. The hidden facility had been built over 2 centuries, carved from solid rock and shielded from any form of detection. "Ma'am," her intelligence chief reported, "the Galactic Council has voted. Humanity has 30 days to accept protective custody or face forcible relocation to reservation worlds." Kate studied the holographic display showing the positions of alien fleets throughout the galaxy. The hegemony had positioned attack groups at every major hyperspace junction leading to human space. They weren't planning to relocate humanity. They were planning to eliminate it entirely. "Signal all fleet commanders," Kate ordered. "Operation Revelation begins now. It's time to drop the mask." Throughout human space, agents who had lived quiet lives as mechanics, traders, and even alien government officials received their activation codes. Some had been undercover for 30 years, passing their mission down through generations. Others were recent graduates of Earth's intelligence academies, trained from childhood for this moment. The transformation began immediately. Hidden shipyards that had been disguised as asteroid mining facilities suddenly came alive with activity. Weapons platforms that had masqueraded as communication relays began powering up their real systems. Most importantly, the quantum crystal mines in the Outer Rim started producing the exotic matter needed to fuel humanity's true fleet. Captain Ryan Carter felt the change even from his prison cell. The neural implant in his brain, invisible to alien scanners, received the activation signal. Throughout the hegemony facility, other captured humans began implementing escape plans they had rehearsed countless times. The prison guards had no idea what was happening. The humans they had dismissed as weak and helpless suddenly became ghosts, moving through the facility's security systems like they had built them. Within hours, critical intelligence about hegemony military capabilities was being transmitted back to Earth through channels the aliens didn't even know existed. Back on Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison stood before the Galactic Council one last time in his role as humble human diplomat. The chamber was filled with representatives who thought they were witnessing humanity's surrender. "Honored delegates," Jake began, his voice no longer carrying the uncertainty it had for months. "You have given humanity 30 days to accept your terms. We have considered your offer carefully." He paused, looking around the chamber at faces that showed everything from pity to barely concealed greed. These beings had spent centuries believing they were superior to humanity in every way. "Our answer," Jake continued, "is no." The simple word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Several delegates laughed, thinking the human had lost his mind. Others looked concerned, wondering if humanity was planning some desperate last stand that would be embarrassing to watch. None of them understood that they had just heard the opening shot of a war that would reshape the galaxy forever. The galaxy woke up to reports that seemed impossible. Across 17 star systems, massive human vessels had appeared overnight. These ships looked nothing like the primitive patrol boats that aliens had grown used to seeing. They were sleek, deadly, and moved through space in ways that violated everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics. Captain Alex Morgan stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, watching hegemony forces scramble to respond to humanity's sudden appearance. The alien ships moved with panic, their formations breaking apart as commanders tried to understand what they were facing. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Hegemony fleet is moving to intercept. 12 heavy cruisers and 4 dreadnoughts, standard attack formation." Alex smiled grimly. The aliens were still thinking in terms of their old tactics, treating this like any other conquest. They had no idea that the rules of space combat had just changed forever. "Signal the fleet," Alex ordered. "Begin demonstration protocol." The Defiance began to change before the aliens' eyes. Its hull shifted and flowed like liquid metal, adapting to the incoming weapon signatures that the ship's sensors had detected. When the hegemony forces opened fire, their energy beams simply absorbed into the ship's adaptive armor, making it stronger instead of causing damage. General Krath watched from his flagship as his most powerful weapons had no effect on the human vessel. The beams that could crack planets were being absorbed like raindrops on a lake. His tactical computers showed readings that made no sense. "Impossible," he growled. "No technology can adapt that quickly to different weapon types." He was about to learn just how wrong he was. The Defiance finished analyzing the hegemony weapons and began to replicate their energy signatures. When it fired back, the alien shields collapsed instantly because they were designed to stop their own weapons, not adaptive copies that had been improved and amplified. But the real shock came when long-range sensors detected what was happening throughout human space. Massive structures were decloaking everywhere, space stations the size of moons, manufacturing platforms that dwarfed entire alien fleets, and mobile shipyards that had been hidden for decades behind carefully projected false images. High Chancellor Vexitar stood in his command center on Nexus Prime, staring at sensor readings that his technicians assured him were accurate. The scale of human infrastructure was staggering. How had they hidden so much for so long? "Sir," his intelligence chief reported with a shaking voice, "we're detecting over 3,000 human vessels in formation. But that's not the worst part. Our deep space monitors are showing construction signatures that suggest they have been building this fleet for over 200 years. Vextar felt ice in his veins. 200 years meant the humans had been planning this deception since before most current alien governments had even existed. While the galaxy thought humanity was struggling with basic space travel, they had been building the most advanced fleet anyone had ever seen. Back on Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison walked into the Galactic Council chamber, but this time he wasn't alone. Amy Foster accompanied him, along with a dozen other humans who had supposedly been simple diplomats and support staff. Their humble uniforms had been replaced with military dress that spoke of authority and power. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates realized the magnitude of their mistake. Species that had lorded over others for millennia were suddenly facing the possibility that they were primitive compared to the race they had dismissed as backward. "Honored delegates," Jake began, his voice now carrying the authority of someone who no longer needed to pretend weakness. "For 3 centuries you have made assumptions about humanity based on carefully crafted lies. Today you learn the truth." He activated a holographic display that showed the real scope of human military power. Ships that made the largest alien vessels look like toys. Weapons that could reshape matter at the molecular level. Defense systems that could stop anything the galaxy could throw at them. "Every treaty you signed with us," Jake continued. "Every insult you delivered, every plan you made to exploit or eliminate humanity, we recorded it all. We know which of you planned genocide. We know which of you saw us as slave labor. We know everything." Dr. Lisa Hayes appeared on the chamber's main screen, broadcasting from Earth. Her laboratory, which had been disguised as a simple research facility, was revealed to be a complex that stretched for kilometers underground. "To those watching across the galaxy," Lisa announced, "humanity offers a simple message. We are not the primitive species you believed us to be. We are not weak, helpless, or inferior. We have spent centuries watching you, learning from you, and preparing for this day." The broadcast showed images of human technology that made alien science look like children's toys. Ships that could phase between dimensions. Weapons that could age targets to dust in seconds. Most terrifying of all, soldiers whose minds were directly linked to their equipment. making them react faster than any alien reflexes could match. But the real demonstration came when the UHS Retribution appeared above Nexus Prime itself. The massive vessel didn't decloak gradually. It simply materialized in orbit, blocking out part of the sun with its bulk. The ship was so large that weather patterns on the planet's surface began to shift from its gravitational influence. The message was clear without a single word being spoken. Humanity could put a vessel of that size anywhere in the galaxy without warning. No planet, no fleet, no species was safe from human reach if humanity chose to act against them. In the Hegemony command bunker, General Krath received reports that his advance fleets had simply vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. Human vessels had appeared, engaged his forces for exactly 90 seconds, and then both fleets had disappeared from all sensors. Where did they go? Krath demanded. Unknown, sir, his sensor chief replied. Our ships stopped transmitting simultaneously. No debris, no energy signatures, nothing. It's like they were never there. The truth was worse than Krath could imagine. The human ships had used experimental displacement technology to move the entire engagement into a pocket dimension where the laws of physics could be controlled. The hegemony forces had been defeated, captured, and were now being interrogated by specialists who could extract information directly from alien brain patterns. Captain Ryan Carter stood in the newly revealed human intelligence facility where he had been imprisoned. The hegemony guards who had mocked him were now the ones behind bars, still trying to understand how their secure facility had been compromised so completely. Phase 1 complete, Ryan reported to Admiral Sullivan through quantum communication channels that allowed instant contact across any distance. All hegemony military commanders are in custody. Their fleets have been neutralized. Admiral Sullivan stood in her command center, no longer hidden beneath Luna's surface but openly broadcasting her location to the galaxy. The facility that had been disguised as a simple mining operation was revealed to be a military complex that coordinated human operations across hundreds of star systems. Signal all human forces, Kate ordered. Begin Phase 2. Show them what happens when someone threatens to commit genocide against humanity. Throughout the galaxy, alien governments that had been planning to profit from humanity's destruction suddenly found themselves cut off from their own military forces. Human cyber warfare specialists using quantum computing systems that could break any alien encryption in milliseconds had taken control of their communication networks. The species that had laughed at human technology were learning that they had been living in a carefully maintained illusion. While they thought they were advanced, humanity had progressed far beyond anything they could imagine. The galaxy had thought they knew humanity. They had been wrong about everything. Now they were about to learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be weak. War erupted across the galaxy as the hegemony refused to accept the new reality. Their pride demanded that they fight back against humanity, even though their initial fleets had been crushed without inflicting a single casualty on human forces. What followed was a demonstration of military power that redefined what galactic warfare could become. The hegemony's second wave consisted of over 400 warships, including their most advanced dreadnoughts and experimental weapons platforms. They moved in perfect formation toward human space, confident that sheer numbers would overcome whatever tricks humanity had used before. They encountered Captain Alex Morgan's fleet at the edge of the Kepler system. What the aliens saw defied everything they understood about space combat. The human ships moved like they could see the future, dodging weapons fire before the aliens had even targeted them. Their formations shifted and flowed like living things, each vessel responding to threats that hadn't yet materialized. How are they doing that? Demanded Admiral Zethros, the hegemony's finest tactical mind. His computers showed human ships reacting to attacks a full second before his own weapons fired. It was impossible unless they could see through time itself. The truth was almost as incredible. Human consciousness transfer technology allowed pilots to think at the speed of quantum processors. Their minds, linked directly to their ship's systems, could process battlefield information and calculate enemy actions faster than any biological brain could function. Colonel Danny Price led a special operations team deep into hegemony territory. Their mission was intelligence gathering, but what they discovered changed everything. Hidden in the heavily defended Corthax system, they found a research facility working on something that made Danny's blood run cold. The facility was developing a biological weapon specifically designed to target human DNA. The hegemony hadn't just planned to conquer humanity, they had been preparing to eliminate every human in the galaxy through engineered plague, genocide on a scale that would have killed billions. Danny's team moved through the station like ghosts. Their adaptive camouflage systems made them invisible to every type of sensor the aliens possessed. Their enhanced reflexes and modified nervous systems allowed them to move faster than alien eyes could track. When they finally struck, the station's defenses collapsed in minutes. Base Command, Danny reported through quantum channels, "We have confirmation of genocide weapons." The hegemony was planning complete extermination of human populations. Recommend immediate escalation to final protocols. Admiral Sullivan received the report in her command center, now openly operating from its position near Earth. The restraint that humanity had shown since the war began evaporated instantly. She activated protocols that had been prepared for the worst possible scenario. All fleet commanders, she broadcast on secure channels. Authorization granted for unrestricted warfare. Show them what happens when someone attempts genocide against humanity. The change was immediate and terrifying. Human ships throughout the galaxy stopped holding back and revealed their true capabilities. Reality bombs, weapons that could unravel matter at the quantum level, turned entire hegemony fleets into expanding clouds of subatomic particles. Temporal displacement devices aged enemy vessels to dust in seconds, their crews dying of old age before they could even scream. Captain Morgan watched as his fleet demonstrated the full extent of human naval doctrine. Each ship in his command was fighting simultaneously across 12 different star systems. Their consciousness linked, pilots coordinating attacks across light years as if they were standing in the same room. The artificial intelligence systems supporting human forces analyzed enemy behavior patterns in real time, predicting hegemony tactics with accuracy that seemed supernatural. When alien commanders tried to retreat, human ships were already waiting at their destination. When they attempted surprise attacks, human forces had prepared ambushes hours in advance. The other galactic species watched in growing terror as the war's scope became clear. The hegemony, which had conquered dozens of systems over the past century, was being systematically destroyed by a force that fought like the universe itself had turned against them. Some species, like the peaceful Etherians, immediately sent envoys to Earth seeking alliance with humanity. Their messages spoke of friendship and mutual cooperation, carefully avoiding any mention of their previous dismissive attitudes toward human capabilities. Others, terrified by the display of human power, attempted to remain neutral while secretly preparing for the possibility that humanity might decide they were threats as well. Weapons programs that had been dormant for centuries were suddenly reactivated. Defense systems were hastily upgraded. None of it would matter if humanity chose to act against them. The coalition states tried to position themselves as mediators, calling for peace talks and ceasefires. Their ambassadors spoke eloquently about the need for diplomatic solutions, while their military leaders quietly calculated how long their own forces might last against human technology. Captain Ryan Carter had been released from hegemony custody when human forces liberated the prison facility. Now he commanded a squadron of fighter craft that moved through space like living creatures. His consciousness, directly linked to his ship's systems, allowed him to pilot the vessel as naturally as walking. Target acquired, Ryan reported as he led his squadron toward a hegemony supply convoy. 12 cargo ships with escort fighters. Standard interdiction pattern. The engagement lasted 90 seconds. The human fighters flowed around enemy fire like water, their movements impossible to predict or counter. When they fired back, their weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling rather than destroying. Humanity wanted prisoners and intelligence, not just victory. The hegemony's final desperate gambit involved assembling the largest fleet in galactic history for a direct assault on Earth itself. General Krath, freed from human custody in a prisoner exchange, commanded over 2,000 warships in a formation that stretched across multiple star systems. If we can strike their homeworld, Krath argued to his war council, we can force them to negotiate. No species can maintain their aggression if their home system is under direct threat. The plan showed how little the hegemony understood about humanity. Earth wasn't just the human homeworld. It was the center of a military-industrial complex that spanned the entire solar system. What awaited the hegemony fleet would demonstrate the true meaning of human preparation. As the massive alien armada approached the Sol system, they detected defensive installations that defied belief. Every planet was surrounded by orbital weapons platforms. The asteroid belt had been turned into a network of automated defense systems. Even the comets in the outer system carried weapons that could destroy capital ships. "Sir," Krath's sensor chief reported with a trembling voice, "I'm reading over 10,000 defensive platforms in the Sol system. The entire solar system has been weaponized." Krath stared at the tactical display, finally understanding the magnitude of his mistake. Humanity hadn't just built a fleet. They had turned their entire home system into the most powerful fortress in galactic history. The hegemony was about to attack not just a planet, but a military installation the size of a star system. The battle for Sol would determine the future of the galaxy. On one side stood the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. On the other stood a species that had spent 3 centuries preparing for exactly this moment. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone threatened humanity's home. The Battle of Sol began when the hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of humanity's home system. General Krath expected to face desperate defenders protecting their homeworld. Instead, he found himself staring at the most comprehensive defense network ever constructed by any species in galactic history. The first wave of automated defenses activated before the hegemony ships had even finished their hyperspace transition. Weapons platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt began firing, their targeting systems guided by artificial intelligence that had been studying alien military tactics for decades. Each shot was perfectly calculated to disable rather than destroy, because humanity wanted witnesses to survive. Captain Ryan Carter led his fighter squadron from the deck of the UHS Sovereign, Admiral Sullivan's flagship. His craft moved through the battle like they were extensions of his own body, dodging enemy fire while delivering precise strikes against hegemony command vessels. The consciousness transfer technology allowed him to think and react at speeds that made alien pilots look like they were moving underwater. Multiple contacts. Bearing 27 Mark IV, Ryan reported to his squadron. Hegemony assault carriers launching fighters, moving to intercept. The dogfight that followed would be studied in military academies for centuries. Human fighters float around enemy formations like schools of fish, their movements coordinated by shared consciousness networks that allowed perfect teamwork without radio communication. Every pilot could see through every other pilot's eyes, creating a hive mind that no alien force could match. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Sovereign, watching the battle unfold across multiple holographic displays. The hegemony fleet was massive, but it was fighting according to tactics that were centuries out of date. They still thought in terms of individual ships and linear formations, while humanity fought as a single organism. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, "Enemy fleet is attempting to break through our outer defensive ring. Should we deploy the experimental weapons?" Kate considered the question carefully. The weapons her officer was referring to could end the battle in minutes, but using them would reveal capabilities that might terrify even humanity's potential allies. On the other hand, the hegemony had attempted genocide against her species. "Deploy them," she ordered. "Let the galaxy see what happens when someone tries to exterminate humanity." The space around Sol suddenly filled with phenomena that violated the known laws of physics. Ships began aging rapidly, their hulls corroding in seconds as temporal weapons manipulated the flow of time around them. Other vessels simply vanished as reality bombs unraveled their atomic structure, returning them to the quantum foam from which all matter emerged. General Krath watched his fleet disintegrate around him, unable to comprehend the forces being used against him. His tactical computers couldn't even identify the weapon types being employed. How could any species develop technology that controlled time itself? "All ships, retreat," he broadcast desperately. "Fall back to minimum safe distance." But there was no safe distance from weapons that could reach across space and time. As hegemony ships tried to flee, they found human vessels already waiting at their destination coordinates. The consciousness-linked human pilots had calculated every possible escape route and positioned forces to intercept them all. The battle lasted 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. When the last hegemony ship powered down its weapons in surrender, over 90% of their fleet had been disabled or destroyed. Human casualties numbered exactly 0. Captain Alex Morgan accepted the surrender of Admiral Zethros aboard the captured Hegemony flagship. The alien commander, his pride broken by the completeness of his defeat, could barely look at the human officer who had outmaneuvered his entire fleet. "Your species fought bravely," Alex told him. "But you made a critical error. You tried to commit genocide against humanity. That is something we can never forgive or forget." As news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy, the political structure that had existed for millennia began to collapse. Species that had dominated others through military might suddenly found themselves helpless against human technology. The Galactic Council dissolved overnight as member species fled to their homeworlds to prepare for whatever humanity might do next. Colonel Danny Price led the war crimes tribunals that followed. The evidence his team had gathered from hegemony facilities was overwhelming. The biological weapons designed to target human DNA, the plans for systematic extermination, the casual discussions of genocide as a military option. It was all documented in their own records. "The hegemony leadership stands accused of attempted genocide," Danny announced to the makeshift court established on Nexus Prime. "The evidence is clear and undeniable. The sentence is complete dissolution of their government and permanent monitoring of their military capabilities." But humanity's justice went beyond simple punishment. The hegemony's former territories were given independence, their slave populations freed and relocated to worlds of their choosing. The species that had been ground under hegemony rule for centuries suddenly found themselves protected by human guarantees of freedom. Dr. Lisa Hayes worked with teams from across human space to establish the new governmental structure that would replace the failed Galactic Council. The Terran Accords created a system where military might was balanced by moral responsibility, where strong species were required to protect weaker ones rather than exploit them. "The galaxy has learned a hard lesson," Lisa announced during the treaty signing ceremony. "Strength without justice leads to tyranny. Technology without wisdom leads to destruction. Humanity will ensure that these mistakes are never repeated." Admiral Sullivan addressed the reformed galactic government from her position as the first human guardian of galactic peace. The role had been created specifically for humanity, recognizing that they were the only species with both the power and the moral authority to prevent future genocides. "We did not seek this responsibility," Kate told the assembled delegates, "but we will not shirk from it. Any species that attempts genocide, slavery, or systematic oppression will face the full might of the human armada. This is not a threat, it is a promise." The new order was tested quickly when the Draconian Empire attempted to reassert control over their former slave colonies. The rebellion lasted 3 days before human intervention forces arrived. The Draconian fleet, which had terrorized that region of space for centuries, surrendered without firing a shot when they saw human vessels decloak around their formations. Jake Morrison became Earth's first galactic ambassador, working to build relationships with species that were still adjusting to the new reality. Many aliens found it difficult to accept that the race they had dismissed as primitive was now the most powerful force in the galaxy. "We understand your concerns," Jake told a gathering of nervous alien diplomats. "But humanity has no interest in conquest or domination. We want a galaxy where every species can develop according to their own values, free from oppression and fear." The transformation wasn't immediate or complete. Some species tried to develop weapons that could challenge human technology, only to discover that humanity's intelligence networks detected their efforts before the first prototypes were built. Others attempted to form secret alliances against human influence, but found that human agents had infiltrated their governments decades earlier. Captain Ryan Carter, now commanding his own vessel, patrolled the galaxy's trade routes with a mixed crew of humans and aliens. The sight of human ships protecting merchant convoys sent a clear message. The age of piracy and predation was over. Trade would be conducted fairly, or it would not be conducted at all. The most remarkable change was cultural. Species that had spent millennia believing that might made right suddenly found themselves in a galaxy where strength was expected to protect the weak. The human concept of noblesse oblige, that power carried responsibility, became the foundation of the new galactic order. Years later, as Jake Morrison stood before the reformed galactic government, he reflected on how much had changed. The chamber that had once been filled with species plotting humanity's exploitation now hosted debates about how to better protect developing civilizations from more advanced neighbors. The galaxy thought it knew humanity, Jake said in his final address as ambassador. They thought we were weak, primitive, easily controlled. They were wrong about our capabilities, but they were also wrong about our character. We could have conquered you all, but conquest was never our goal. We wanted justice, and now the galaxy has it. The human armada continued to patrol the galaxy, no longer hiding in shadows but standing openly as guardians of the peace. Their ships carried a message that resonated across every star system. Strength should protect, not exploit. Technology should serve justice, not enable oppression. And most importantly, no species would ever again face genocide while humanity had the power to prevent it. The age of deception was over. The age of human guardianship had begun, and the galaxy was learning what it truly meant to be protected by those who had the strength to destroy, but chose instead to defend.